Hello, everyone. Welcome to Game Gathering, Waterhole. And right now we will have another speech, as usually, wonderful speech, which will be made by our, our friend who will maybe mention some of his experiences. I just will tell you some scale of how much experience he had. He worked on various marketing roles for German, Korean, Taiwanese, and Chinese game publishers, which is fascinating. Also ventured to different IT technological giants such as Citroën and worked with smart technologies and so on, and returned. Welcome back again to game industry, and started working uh, for a platform which actually help a distribution tool that assists developers and retailers in transacting license keys and keyless activizations with each other. So, without further ado, I give you Bjorn Horneman. Yeah, is it correctly?
That is super perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thanks. Yeah. Hey, everyone. Pretty honored to speak here. My name is Björn, as it has just been mentioned. And in this lecture, actually, we're covering a little bit distribution opportunities that are beyond Steam, which most of you in the digital PC space use very likely. So let me quickly start with the status quo of the industry and where we are now, because it's not only about making the right product, it's also about finding the right channels to market it. So if we look at the situation as it is today, estimated by Dutch researchers Newzoo, they estimated in their recent global games market report that the games industry market is about 184, 185 billion dollars strong. And if we look into the space with which is PC digital, that alone is still a growing market with 5.3% plus, with approximately 39, 38 billion dollars. So that is basically the cake that we are talking about. And if we look at the geographical allocation of these revenues, you will see that obviously Asia Pacific is large just due to the big population there, but Europe still strong, 33 billion. Latin America growing, same for North America. But the strongest growth you will see in Middle East, Asia, Africa, and also in Latin. While Europe, I would say, is a little bit in consolidation. Asia even decreasing, in North America it's a small growth. So that's the market we are talking about. So why is that important? I assume that most of you that are developers um, are very likely distributing their titles via Steam, maybe one or two other platforms, I guess, but the majority obviously distributes via Steam, and they have, as nearly everybody in this industry knows, a market share of 70%. And if we look at Steam itself, you will notice that they have 73,000 games that are available within their platform, but only 500 of those games earn more than 3 million. And that is actually last year's numbers. And you will find thousands, if not 10,000s of games who not even earn 3 million, which is actually quite a significant number, but that are maybe even in the 5 or 6 digit range of numbers. So this is basically the situation that we are talking about. You have a huge platform that nearly has a monopoly, and that becomes a problem. Why? Because the visibility and the discoverability of a new game that you place there becomes an issue. It's very comparable to the situation in mobile app stores, if it's Apple App Store or Google Play, where basically you have loads of challenges bringing your title to a top position in a specific market. Um, and that likely will change due to the introduction of the Digital Markets Act, which will allow alternative side-loading opportunities, especially for Apple in Western Europe. But the same is a little bit for PC digital. We have a monopoly. You have a lot of challenges. You need to invest a lot into marketing campaigns. You have to invest into influencer campaigns. I think the guy, I think his name was Michael, who had the recent speech, actually mentioned that. Therefore, you need to invest a lot actually to have a chance for a good position. It's not only, there's tremendous good and nice indie games that actually deserve much, much more reach, but they don't find them because simply people are not aware that these titles exist. So this is it. And obviously, as a AAA publisher, if you're one of the big guys, you have tremendous marketing budgets. You can invest a lot into PR, into marketing, influencer campaigns, blah 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 blah. But as, let's say, a mid-sized, small or indie studio or even standalone dev, that is definitely not easy. You will very likely have challenges to gain and achieve that reach. You will have trouble actually managing that. You will need staff. You will have a marketing manager. You need sales managers, social media stuff. So how do you do that? If you have, let's say, as an indie developer, you might have 2-3 titles, and then you're lacking maybe the funds to finance all that, and let's say it like that. Enthusiasm alone doesn't pay the bills. So you definitely have a need. So we spoke about that. We have that situation. Let's recap it again. We have 70% market share for Steam. We have actually growing markets in LATAM, in Asia, that actually deserve to be conquered. But how do you do that? That is actually the question. So that's why I want to focus today a little bit on what I call the other 30%. So the other 30% is actually in the PC digital market, and a little bit also if you look at platforms or hardware like Steam Deck, is anything that is not Steam, and how you can gain revenues from it. Because in the end, the revenues are what you need to pay your bills, that make you successful. And obviously, the motivation is not only to create a really good and high quality title, but definitely you want to be economically successful and grow and maybe finance your next title with it. So if we look at the other 30%, as I said, they deserve to be explored. And you will find there what we call basically visibility of your title, growth, and obviously revenues due to that. So if we look at those 30%, there is plenty of opportunities out there. The challenge is that these 30% market share are fragmented massively. You have alternative platforms. Some of them you might know. GOG obviously is a known one. The guys from Poland. Epic Game Store is also another platform. The challenge with them is you actually have to prepare builds that are basically including their SDK. So they are an option, but the downside is you have to build, you have to create alternative builds next to your Steam build, and also, of course, that is additional effort that you have to run. A little bit more easy to integrate are retailers that are out there. You have Fanatical, for example. I'm pretty sure everybody of you knows them. Greenman Gaming, Games Planet, and then you have marketplaces like G2A, or specialized retailers like Humble Bundle. And all I'm describing here are examples for the Western market. However, what I picked here is actually the biggest one. So you can actually say that some of these retailers would even outperform Steam in some Western markets if it's the right title, if it's the right pricing. The downside is that these stores, usually as a developer, you usually use Steam keys. And the downside here is that Steam limits your opportunity selling Steam keys on other platforms. So if we look at their terms and conditions, they made changes earlier last year, where they, for example, limited the ability of developers and publishers to decide freely on pricing. So let's imagine that I want to sell my keys for my game, my activation keys on Fanatical for a price which is lower than Steam, then that is difficult because Steam's terms and conditions simply don't allow that. That's the first problem. The second problem is Steam also limits the use of their activation keys, because as a developer, you usually don't have your own license key system. You usually use Steam's functionality for that. and therefore you're a little bit caught in jail and cannot really decide freely on pricing, which limits opportunities, and that is obviously something which is not great. But yeah, that's a situation as it is. So at least we can say, even though it's challenging, we have those 30%. We have these stores where you can talk to it. This is actually capturing a little bit more the European, Central European, and US market. But obviously, the rest of the world is still there. And I mentioned in the beginning, growing emerging markets like LATAM, like Asia, obviously, and there's so many exciting opportunities. For example, if we look at Nuvem, that's a huge Brazilian player. Level Up as well from Brazil and Latam, very large there. Coda, some of you might know, they're strong in Southeast Asia, and there's so many others. CubeJoy from China, DirectG, PlayAsia, Oyon for the huge Turkish market, Mintroot. So Kinguin also a marketplace which is used heavily for these kind of things. So yeah, as you noticed, these are a lot of examples, and I'm just covering the most important ones and the biggest ones. And I'm pretty sure there's thousands more. So how do you reach all those? What can you do? Let's imagine you are a small studio, small staff. You don't have a dedicated sales manager. Or even if you have, even for that person, it would be difficult to cover and manage all that. So what can you do? What are your challenges? You have a limited distribution setup. As I just said, sales distribution staff, maybe 1-2 people if it's a small, mid-sized company. At the same time, a challenge can be that you have a lack of control because you might not have real-time sales data. So you don't know actually where your game is sold, where it's performing nicely, which market you can choose. Therefore, you're a little bit fishing in the blind spot. Next challenge is human intervention. Where you have staff, there is the possibility of human errors. So if done wrong, and if set up wrong in your distribution setup, a lot of manual work is needed to manage these operations. Classically, digital distribution is still acting as if it would be the days where we still sold physical boxes. That means that people share price lists by Excel. They share even the activation keys sometimes by Excel or spreadsheets. In some cases, or in a lot of cases, the marketing assets for games are shared manually. You have to coordinate promotions with your retail partner, which you want to do if you do a launch promotion, or if you do a special winter or spring sale, whatever. You have to manage all that usually in a very manually and time-consuming way, which requires staff that cost you money. Same in the same area, basically another problem: slow cash flow, more theft. If you distribute keys by spreadsheets, one of your challenges will be that usually these keys are either sold on consignment, or alternatively you have a simple revenue share deal. In both cases, that means that you have to wait for your reporting of the sales partner, of the retail channel, whoever it is. Then you state your invoice. Then in worst cases, you have 30, 60, even 90 days of payment goals. So that is bad for cash flow, because with cash flow, that's your key KPI that you need if you run a studio, obviously, because you need to pay bills, you need to pay salaries. That is definitely something that can ease you down. So to sum it up, as I just said, digital distribution, it's kind of a little bit of a confusing term, because as I said, digital distribution nowadays in the PC game space is a little bit like in the physical product distribution days. And that leads to all the inefficiencies that I just described here. And you would be very surprised that this is not only a problem that is limited to indie or AA studios. It's also something that you experience with AAA publishers. I can give you an example of a relatively well-known Asian publisher, AAA one, really large releases. And if a retailer asked this company where they can get the right marketing assets to place them in the store, the responsive people would actually have to ask within this huge corporate organization where to find it, and it takes ages. It's long. It's really inefficient, and it's just one example. So even AAA publishers or developers are affected by this problem. So what can you do? What are your options to manage all those? And obviously, we can't just highlight this and touch a little bit the top of the iceberg here, because it would usually be a 2-hour session. But let me give you 3 options that you can choose to actually reach that 30%, to have that additional revenue, to explore domestic emerging markets. The first, if you're an indie, the first option would basically be, okay, you do it yourself, which I definitely do not recommend, because it would just be replicating all these slow processes that I just described. You would have heavy staff, you wouldn't have automation, you would have manual processes everywhere. So this is the first option. I'm not really recommending it, but obviously it's better than nothing. Before you just stay with Steam and put all your bets on that channel, then fine. But yeah, again, it's not the primary choice. So then you have other possibilities. You can work with a distributor. There are hundreds of them out there in the specific markets that you can tackle. And then you have aggregators who can do the managing job with you, for you. They basically, companies like Gambler or Storm, they are really known in that space, and they basically have a network of retail or marketplaces connected to them, and they will basically manage all that for you. But at the same time, they play a significant, obviously they want to have their service paid, and that means that you pay up to 5, 6, 7, 8%, depends on the deal, sometimes 10. You pay that to them, so they handle all that job for you. And the third option, and that is basically what we are doing, you can choose a technical distribution platform, which still means that you do the job by yourself, but you have a high level of automation to manage all that, to manage pricing and promotion, to have that API-based distribution of your keys and your activations, and obviously have real-time reporting, and that is what we do. So that is the third option. As far as I know, next to our platform, there's no one else right now doing that. There's a couple of people trying to do it, and they're in a very early stage. To be fair, there's a French company called NCAPS that is something doing that, but also they're pretty early stage regarding this. That would obviously be the preferred solution. The fourth option, obviously, you would stay with Steam alone, but I think that's not really what you want to do. So yeah, to basically quickly say it, so this is what we do. We are Vultn. We build a platform to handle all these challenges that I just described, but obviously you can go with other solutions as well. And we did that not only for indies, we also do it for big companies like Bethesda, for example. We did their Starfield launch last year, and helped them distributing that to everything that was not Steam. Even outperform Steam in some markets. And yeah, so we can say we're business proven, even though we're relatively young, and a couple of new companies are coming. So yeah, thanks for your attention. 20 minutes are gone. I think that's my time frame until we come to the question and answers. And therefore, thanks for your attention already. And happy to listen to your questions and answers.
Hello. And thank you for your speech, Bjorn. And it was very interesting, and people are excited. And could you please, one of the questions which we have is, what would you advise for small startup, indie startup marketing strategy? What to study? Perhaps you can also suggest some places they can find more of marketing information to learn about modern techniques to promote indie small game.
Okay, that's a different field, obviously. But if you want to talk about marketing, or if you look for the right channels, I mean, it depends on budget. And as a small company, you usually have a small budget. So in that particular case, I think going the grassroots way is the best. Create a proper demo video, have a proper demo asset, and place it somewhere in all the respective channels, either it's Twitch or others, and then see where it's performing best. And if you see that, for example, your title is performing, let's say it's performing well in Brazil, and much more than, for example, in Central Europe, then you can say, okay, maybe it's a good option to look for a retail partner down there in Brazil, because I have a lot of feedback from early access or pre-release users. And then see if I find a good retail partner down there, whether it's Nuvem, Level Up, or Bonox, or whoever, or even the three of them, and make sure that I actually gain my money there. You would be very surprised to see that a lot of Asian MMO publishers that I worked for in the past had huge problems getting their products placed properly in the European market, because the products were simply not designed for Europe. So European players had other needs and other preferences than Asian players, which, for example, if you look at Dragon Nest, which is a huge MMO that has been released years ago, and it made billions of dollars of revenues in China and Taiwan, they barely made the same amounts in Europe. That was maybe 1 or 2% of what they made in Asia, simply because the game was not suitable. If they would have had looked in the right way, where they would have other promising markets, let's say LATAM, they might have made more revenues outside their domestic one. But yeah, that's basically what you have to do. If you're an indie, if you're a small studio, or even if you're a big AAA company, it's the same. Do your homework and then find out where your game is crossing.
Thank you. And another question also, we're asked if there are any statistic on Australia, and how, can Australia be looked at as a market, and or indie games from Australia should be targeted on European?
There's, as far as I know, there's a pretty known price comparison page for the Australian market, and I would consider it being an own market, maybe. So, to be honest with you, I'm not deeply in Australia and New Zealand. I know there's a couple of good studios down there in Melbourne and Sydney, especially in the mobile space. However, that's definitely something. I mean, the first step that I would do is actually look for local partners. Do I have? There's definitely an Australian Games Association, I guess. Talk to these people, talk to people down there in that space, and see who are the big players there. However, in the retail space, I would say that they're pretty much alike, like Western European or the US market. So very likely they use the same retail channels.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, please look up their association. They're just one big country, so they probably have one association, multiple, like in Europe or United States. So it's easier. And by the way, they will have their own showcase at GDC, so feel free to stop by International Showcase and check them out. Well, basically, that's all time we have for questions. And if anyone has any questions, you can use QR codes to check out Bjorn's person. And there's also Bjorn's email. Feel free to contact him if you have any questions or propositions, of course. And thank you very much, Bjorn, and thank you for your input and support of Ukrainian.
No worries. Thanks, everyone.
And now we're turning to our sponsors. Thank you very much.
Take care, guys. Slava Ukraini. Bye.
Slava Ukraini. Героям слава. Okay. I guess right now we have playlist playing, I hope. So, nice talking to you.
No worries, Yaroslav. I will definitely reach out for the Central Asian conference. That sounds pretty interesting. When is it actually happening?
In somewhere around June, July, on the border.
Okay.
And last time it was at the beginning of July, and there are only a handful of speakers, 10 or a little more, and we had and also if you're interested, I'll tell you about some other conferences which are worth visiting. And yeah, okay,
we are always interested to speak somewhere. So definitely happy to join.
Let's contact and discuss, maybe.
No worries, I already added you on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.